In One Piece chapter 1131, Loki clearly indicates that he has met Shanks. Those guarding Loki suggested that Shanks came to the underworld of Elbaf 6 years ago. It is unknown at what point Loki was captured and by whom. However, we were told that it happened sometime 6 years ago. It is entirely possible that the one who aided in his imprisonment was none other than Red-Haired Shanks. Some of you might remember that 6 years ago, Dorry and Brogy were most definitely not on Elbaf, meaning their strength would have been limited. Even the Elder Giant Jarul was way too weak to take part in combat. This means that Elbaf was left with not too many strong warriors, and that is precisely why the country could have struggled to imprison Loki. But that is where Shanks could have come in. If Shanks was in Elbaf 6 years ago, then it is entirely possible that he helped to imprison Loki by combating him himself. It is also possible that Loki was imprisoned before Shanks came to the island, but was seen trying to escape once, which potentially led to Shanks subduing him somehow. Clearly, Loki does have history with Shanks, as he implied himself in the previous chapter. Naturally, it will take some time for Loki to be freed and for the fans to understand what their connection truly is. At the very least, Loki doesn't seem too fond of Shanks, which means that they might have had a rivalry of sorts. If one is to connect the dots here then, the only conclusion is that Shanks prevented Loki from escaping, and this led to him being renowned as a hero in Elbaf and at the same time taking the country under his protection. And it is possible that Shanks' rise to Yonko might be linked to Loki. It is quite interesting that Oda revealed Shanks to have come to the underworld Elbaf 6 years ago. For those who do not remember, the time when Shanks became an emperor was also 6 years ago. This essentially means that Shanks became a Yonko around the same time that he met Loki, and it is also possible that these two things might have something to do with each other. It must also be remembered that the world government had a 2.6 billion berry special bounty on Loki's head back during this time. This bounty has most certainly not been updated since, because Loki has been kept under strict watch and has not even moved a muscle. This essentially means that Shanks battled Loki 6 years ago, and perhaps it is news of this event, on top of Shanks having declared Elbaf as his territory, that eventually made him one of the 4 emperors of the sea. This bounty has most certainly not been updated since, because Loki has been kept under strict watch and has not even moved a muscle. This essentially means that Shanks battled Loki 6 years ago, and perhaps it is news of this event, on top of Shanks having declared Elbaf as his territory, that eventually made him one of the 4 emperors of the sea. And if we think about this, it's possible because all the evidence is pointing in this direction, and even Loki's introduction already shows how extremely dangerous he is. Yes, you could say that a 2.6 billion berry bounty doesn't justify that Loki could destroy the entire world. But what if even the world government doesn't know the true extent of Loki's strength? Or maybe just like with Luffy, they're keeping his bounty a bit lower to hide his existence from the entire world. Loki is quite easily one of the most ferocious individuals in the One Piece world. We were introduced to Loki first in the Whole Cake Island arc. However, very little was known about him back then, and it was certainly not enough to make anything of his personality. If anything, Loki was seen as a giant with quite a big heart, and this is because he fell in love with Lola and even offered her flowers. Of course, this was a huge gesture from Loki, and it just goes to show that despite everything, Loki is an individual capable of falling in love. He is unlike the villainous entities that we have seen in the story so far. Regardless, all that mattered little, because Lola went to sea on her own and rejected Loki's advances. Immediately after, the marriage pact between the Big Mom pirates and the giant warrior pirates essentially crumbled, and while Big Mom tried to salvage it by shipping off Chiffon to marry Loki, her plan did not work. The relationship between the giants and the Big Mom pirates soured even further, and ever since then, it has stayed the same. Meanwhile, fans did not get to see or hear anything about Loki ever since. But in the Elbaf arc, it was inevitable for Loki to be brought up. Fans did not expect Loki to come up as soon as Elbaf began, but it was certainly a welcome surprise. Immediately upon Loki's introduction, we found out about the brutalities he's committed, such as going on to murder his own father, the king of Elbaf, King Harold. He did all this to consume a legendary devil fruit that was being passed down the royal line in Elbaf. It is unknown if this devil fruit was being consumed by every successor or if it was just being preserved. It is likely that it was simply being preserved and being kept for a special someone who would come in the future. Loki most likely believed himself to be the special someone and decided to consume it. After successfully consuming the devil fruit and gaining its powers, the entirety of Elbaf turned against him. Unfortunately for them, Loki was already too strong at this point, and it required the effort of the entire country to subdue him. Loki could not be put to death, and instead was chained in the underworld of the country. Loki has been tied to the treasure tree Atom since with sea prism stone chains, which essentially means that he cannot free himself without external help. So this is as much as we know about Loki for now, but who knows? Maybe in the future we'll find out that he's actually innocent, or perhaps that someone brainwashed him. Because if you remember, when Loki was first introduced to us from Lola's perspective, he came across as an innocent guy who just had his heart broken. After that incident, who knows? Maybe he fell under someone's influence, which changed him so much. Anyway, we'll soon find out what the reality truly is. Well, the video ends here, but I'd like to know your opinion, so make sure to let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, do give it a like and also subscribe to the channel. We'll meet again with another amazing video. Until then, goodbye.